I love that prayer of even loving the weeds. When I first moved to Seattle, I spent a lot of time at the Pike Place Market, farmer's market that's, not the little farmer's market, the very large farmer's market that's there that occupies several city blocks. And a number of the growers had petitions out because somebody in the state of Washington had declared something called arugula a weed, a noxious weed, and they were going to try to eradicate it. And with rightus, arugula was becoming the hot new green in the culinary circles. And they're trying to say, it's like, wait, time out, this isn't a weed, this is, the latest, really, great green. So what one person's weed is another person's, delicious salad and cooking greens. So thank you. So our theme today, as we continue to work with our year-long theme of creating a world that works for all, is entitled Rose-Colored Glasses. How many are familiar with rose-colored glasses? Okay. And the phrase that goes with this, the belief that goes with this, is we believe in the eternal goodness of life. We believe that life is good. Now, it doesn't mean stuff doesn't happen, but we believe the overall tendency, as the reading said, of life is good. Behind that is good. And because of that, we've sometimes been accused of having a Pollyanna attitude. Anybody ever accuse you or hear this teaching referred to as the Pollyanna teaching sometimes? In a pejorative way, right? As a non-complimentary thing, right? And yet, the funny thing is about Pollyanna, she transformed an entire town with that attitude. Right? I mean, that attitude won out, if you will. So she played this thing called the Glad Game. The Glad Game. And the Glad Game literally transformed this little miserable New England town and her unhappy aunt and all the circumstances around. And the Glad Game simply consisted of looking for the good in every situation. Looking for the good in every situation. So she had a quote, and it was apparently in a little pendant that hung around her, that in the book was attributed to Abraham Lincoln, but Abraham Lincoln never said it. It was straight from the book. It says, when you look for the bad in mankind, expecting to find it, you surely will. And of course, the converse of that is also true. When you look for the good in humankind, expecting to find it, you surely will, right? Yes? Okay. Abraham Lincoln actually did say, a man is about as happy as he makes up his mind to be. A man is about as happy, or a woman, is about as happy as we make up our mind to be. So happiness is a choice. A lot of us wake up and look at the circumstances around us and let them determine, am I going to have a happy day? Instead of saying, I'm going to have a happy day and let that infect the circumstances around me. Okay? Different consciousness, different attitude. So can we play the game of looking for the good in everything? And if you know the story of Pollyanna, she had an aunt who made it very unpleasant for her. At one point in time, her parents were killed and she was taken off by this aunt as an orphan child and raised, and the aunt really didn't want her. The aunt was rich, the aunt had a good life going, being miserable and controlling the town, and she really didn't want this little kid in her life. And so at one point in time, the aunt decides to put her up in the attic, basically as a bedroom, and it's like as kind of a punishment. And she said, "It's great. I have a better bed than I had, when I was in child services, basically, or whatever it was, and I have this beautiful view out over the entire grounds." At another point in time, she was giving her just milk and bread, and making her eat with one of the servants as again a punishment. And she says, "Well, actually, I love milk, and I love bread." And Nancy, the servant, is a really nice person. I get to hang out with her. So it's like finding what's the good. Where can I find the good even when somebody else is trying to make my life miserable? So our invitation with that part of the talk is to find the good. Find the good. Look for the good. And it's a conscious game. Make a game out of it. How would it be if we made a game out of where can I find the good? Where can I find the good in this? Where can I find the good in this? I want to propose another set of glasses to look through. And that's looking through clear glasses. But not just clear as in just seeing the stuff. We're going to talk about that in a moment. There's a quote that I want to read. It says, "There's only one life, and the life, that is the life of God. If it is all God, it must be good." Capital G, good. Good and bad, small g, are labels we humans use to categorize things. How many of us have ever labeled something bad, but later on we said, you know, actually that was pretty good. It was a good thing that that thing that I thought was bad just happened to me. When we see something as, in reality, everything is God. When we see something as negative or bad, we are looking at it through one lens. We need to shift our perception to see it as good. The only thing between us and our good is our thoughts and our beliefs. The only thing between us and our good is our thoughts and our beliefs. Okay? So the lenses that I'd like to invite us to look through, the glasses, are the glasses that allow us to pierce the illusion of good and bad. You know, Rumi has that wonderful poem that says, "Out beyond ideas of right thinking and wrong thinking, there is a field. I'll meet you there." When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. I want to lay in that field. How about you? I'd like to spend time in that field where we drop away the ideas of good and bad. So we look at the circumstances around us, and that's where we determine what's good and bad, right? The circumstances around us? Yes? Okay. Circumstances, the word literally means circum, around, and stand, that which is standing around us. You might even say it's our kind of wall of experience that's around us. Who has created that wall? We have. Either individually or collectively, we have created this set of circumstances around us. And the thing about the circumstances around us are they are effects. There's a cause to put them into being, and they are effects that have now shown up. They are the appearances. And when we start to fight the effects, when we start to fight with the experiences, we empower the effects. We give more power to the effect. When we, and this is what we love to do as religious scientists, as people who practice this philosophy, we deal with cause, with first cause. Instead of looking at the effect and saying, oh, that's bad, we go back to first cause and say, wait, time out, what's the truth here? My friend Eddie Watkins says, you know, it's like looking in the mirror, trying to comb the mirror to adjust your hair. Okay? Instead of going back and saying, if I don't like my hair the way that it is, I have to comb my hair, not the mirror. We deal with first cause. First cause is the authentic truth of any situation. It's the God nature of any situation, and it's far more powerful than appearances because it can change appearances. It is the place that we go to start to shift the appearances. So if I'm living as my authentic, loving, kind self, you know, our theme this month is loving kindness. If I'm living in that way, I'm empowering loving kindness in my life. I'm putting more of that out, and there's only one thing I can get back out of that. Now, yes, I'll have a couple of Aunt Polly, what was her name? Aunt Polly, I think it was, in my life who will sit there and go, no, I'm going to make your life miserable because I don't like you so happy. Anybody? Got a few of those? Maybe not quite that active, but okay. Or there's circumstances we see around us that we can get upset about. If we practice and empower loving kindness instead of fighting the effects out there, we create more loving kindness in our lives. The circumstances are created by consciousness, our consciousness, either individually or as a collective consciousness. By that I mean either a group or the country or the world. We create those. If we created them, we can uncreate them, right? That's the power we have. When we're dealing with cause, we can uncreate circumstances. I've mentioned before about my friend Edwene Gaines, who talks about getting a huge southern antebellum mansion, which she had always wanted for her life, and realizing after a year that the house owned her instead of vice versa. Okay? And so she said, I prayed that sucker into my life. I prayed that sucker right out of my life. She's from Alabama. That's how she talks. Ernest Holmes says that 1 plus God is majority. If I am in alignment with my highest truth and in alignment with spirit, I don't care what the circumstance is out here, it shifts. It shifts. because I'm in alignment with my highest power. So when we move into a circumstance, when we move into a situation where we feel off-center, it's important to take the time to get centered again, to take the time to get centered. This is why spiritual practice is so important. You know, I was talking with a friend the other day who said that meditators are shown, there's been, tests done on meditators, and you can give them a loud noise, and they'll react to it, the brain waves will react to it, they'll notice it, and then go right back to the same level as they were at before of being calm. People who don't meditate, they react to it, and they stay up at this reactive state for a while. Okay? So it's important to do that spiritual practice. It gives us the time to stay centered. And so I'm going to invite you this week to stay centered and to connect with your heart. You know, today's process, if you took it in, was a wonderful way to connect with your heart, right? You just got loved on, and you just got to love other people. How did that feel? Did you care if they were Democrats or Republicans? Did you care if they were young or old? Did you care if they were black or white? Did you care any of those divisions we like to make in our world? No, you just loved on this God being right in front of you, right? Okay? So take that heart connection. Connect with that heart connection. Take the time to connect with your heart. Take the time to connect with that love that you feel. Take the time to connect with the earth. We live on this beautiful planet. It is our mother. Take the time to connect with that earth and ground to that earth. And then take the time to connect with spirit through spiritual practice. That infinite presence that looks above it all and sees it all as good. That is the pure love of this universe. And sometimes I just simply ask, we just ask, help me to see the good in a situation. If I'm feeling blinded, if I can't see the good in a situation, if I'm looking at something, I start to ask the question, help me to see the good here. Help me to see the good. Because sometimes I can't. And what I find is when I ask that question, there's no unanswered prayer. And so we start to see it. So our spiritual practice this week, 3 things. First of all, play the glad game. Go out in your world this week and play the glad game. Find something good in every circumstance, no matter how challenging. Play that game. And notice how it shifts your attitude. Notice how it shifts how you interact with other people. And when you start interacting with other people from that consciousness, eventually they're going to start interacting with you the same way. That's how Pollyanna literally turned that whole town around in the story. So that's practice number 1, play the glad game. Practice number 2, see with God's eyes. Look through appearances to first cause. I love it. One of my favorite visual interpretations of that is from the movie The Matrix, the first one. Has everybody seen that pretty much? And there comes a point where Neo, the main character in it, looks through and he no longer sees the appearance of agents. He sees the data stream behind it, which is first cause, and starts to be able to interact from that consciousness. And he's no longer living in fear. He's not even living in anger. He's just noticing what is. Can we pierce through the appearances and start to see the love, the infinite presence, the divine activity of spirit operating everywhere? Now, it doesn't necessarily mean we understand the whole process of what's happening, right? Something that we have labeled as really the worst thing that could happen in our lives turns out later down the road to be the best thing that happens in our lives. So am I willing to look and say, even if it's just, that old story of the farmer who, loses his horse and everybody says, oh, that's terrible. And he says, we'll see. And then the horse comes back with 5 more horses. And everybody says, how wonderful. And it says, we'll see. Many of you are familiar with that story. Even if we just have this curiosity attitude of, let's see. I don't know. I don't know if this is the worst thing that's ever happened in my life. Let me just be open and find out. And as I'm being open and finding out, let me create the experience that I want to have. I choose to have good in my life. I choose to have this, continue to flow as the nature of spirit, the nature of good, the nature of love in my life. So that's number 2, is see with God's eyes. And then number 3, connect and love from that connected space this week. Connect. Connect with that heart, connect with the earth, connect with spirit, and then live and love from that space this week. Are you willing to take those 3 practices on? Yes. So we're playing the glad game, we're seeing with God's eyes, and we're connecting and then loving from that connected space. So I know that if you do that, you'll have a very powerful week. The world will be blessed by your presence, and that presence ripples out in ways that you have no idea how it ripples out. So I invite you to play with that. Let's move into prayer. And so I know that there is only one life, only one infinite presence, only one. That life, that love, that infinite good, that infinite beauty is all there is. It is all there is. Greater than all the circumstances, beyond all the stuff. That presence always is. And each of us, you and I, everyone on this planet, everything on this planet, the universe, all of it is one of this infinite one presence. All of it. All of us, each of us, are one of this infinite presence right here and right now. And so I speak my word that first of all, I trust that presence. It's been running this universe for even before I was born. It's been running this universe perfectly well for a long, long time. I suspect it will continue to do so for a long, long time. I trust that that infinite presence, that infinite intelligence knows what it is doing. It works through each of us, and we each respond by taking our eyes off of the circumstances and looking at the divine, looking at the truth, looking through the circumstance right to the truth that is within each circumstance. We see God wherever we go. We see good wherever we go. We see love wherever we go. And then we bring that, because we see it, we bring that consciousness wherever we go and begin to install that in each and every situation. And as we do so, we bless ourselves, we bless each other, and we bless this world in ways that we don't even know of. And so I know that each of us has the opportunity this week to commit to being a greater and more loving presence on this planet with each other. And for this, I'm grateful. For each person who's saying yes to this, I'm grateful. For each act of love, for each act of piercing the veil of illusion and seeing the truth that each of us does this week, I'm grateful, because I know that it yields huge results in our lives and in this world. And I'm grateful for the Spirit that moves through it all. And so in that awareness and that consciousness of gratitude, I release this word into what we call the law, the creative process of the universe, knowing that what we put out is what we get back. And as we put out love, as we put out clear seeing, as we put out good, that is what there is more of in this world. I know this is so. We let it be so by simply affirming together, and so it is.